Hello and welcome everyone to the Amazon University Esports Masters powered by Twitch, Student and Intel, and we are going into the last day of the group stage. I'm Kashka, joined by Black Boxer.
Hello everybody, we've got our final day of groups right now. Super excited to get into this one. We've seen a lot of one-sided matchups during groups A and B. Now we've got groups C and D, and these are way closer.
Absolutely. The first two matches are going to be group C, so I guess, mentioning that, we have PG Lions Grey Warwick on 4-1, behind them UDL Sigma and KTU with 3-2, and yeah, it's going to be so close, and you can see the schedule here with, yeah, the first two live games are going to be from Group C.
Group C to start off the day, Group D to end off the day. We've got a few little notes going on for Group C in that we've had two teams unable to play. They have not managed to field themselves 5-man rosters. We've got Gaming and Entertainment and UCC Ultras, both of them unable to pull out enough players to compete, and so they will not be. This means that we do still have the top 4 teams in the group, but the thing is a little bit skewed in that teams who were going to play against these, everybody was going to play a second time as this is a double round robin, now aren't, and they're just going to get wins for those, and it will shake up the standings not too much, but it does mean that you're not really relying on an upset factor. You're not going to be able to hope that UCC Ultras are going to pick themselves up a random win perhaps against PG Lions, and so it is more on your skill. You've got to beat these teams. There's no upsets to count on.
Absolutely. And then we are also going to take a look at the Group D schedule because, let's be honest, the story is kind of similar in terms of the standing. We have that very clear top four, and the matches we're going to be following are going to be towards the latter half of the day.
It is. We're going to be seeing rounds 3, 4, and 5 out of Group D, and we've got a few insane matchups. We're going to be seeing the Turkish squad twice. We had expected them to come out on top, really, last time around. Instead, they ended up faltering 2 times. They're now 3-2, so will they be able to step back up? Or are one of the other teams going to be able to continue the roll through and pull out a win?
Yeah, but of course the story is different that Estuba and Lerace, while they are both at 1 and 4, they are still in playoff contention. They can still come in strong to this day. And they have that upset factor, right? When we look at this group in the second half of the day, things can still shake up significantly.
Yeah, indeed. All of the teams in this Group D can really fight for the top. That's really the thread we're going to be following through Group C and D. Everybody is fighting for the top, especially those top 4 positions. And obviously, it's the top 2 that go through. Top 1 goes straight through, and the second team has to play in the last chance qualifier. So you really are fighting yourself for those top things. As you can see, the last chance qualifier going to start in May. So we've got a little bit of a break after the end of this day. And then we'll join you back for the last chance qualifier, which will include some new teams from the other regions as well.
Yeah, and this is the last day of group stage. As I have mentioned in the opening, this is the last chance if you want to get through to the playoffs, and then, well, your only chance is that last chance qualifier. And if, you're any of these teams and you're doing particularly well in your own regional university league, then we might see you here again. But when you've got the chance, you want to take it now.
Absolutely, you do. And you want to be pushing yourself up into those top 8, because if you do hit top 8, there is a nice prize pool for you, especially if you get onto first position. 5,000 euros if you manage to win out, but there is 14.5k on the line for all of these teams, split up throughout the first 8 teams to make it into the playoffs. And so everybody's going to be looking for this. This is a nice amount of money if you are a broke university student.
Yep, and if you get first in the group, you are automatically in top 8, right? You can already secure yourself the 750 euros at least, and Bobcats and Kid SC in groups A and B respectively have already done it, so we're gonna have to see which 2 teams will join them in that top 8 by the end of today.
Indeed, we will. And I mean, it is that top spot that everybody is fighting for. These 2 teams we've got for the first match of the day are really fighting for that top spot. Both of them are 4-1. And they played last week, and this was the one game that Grey Warwick ended up dropping versus the PG Lions. So this is a very close matchup with a lot of stakes on the line. They are looking for the top spots.
Yeah, but we are going to also take a look at the lineups coming into today, starting with the Polish side, I believe. And the same roster we have seen last week with Cholaper, Pythia, Shurui, Harry, and Radular. And Pythia is definitely the player that we have come to sort of expect great things of.
We really are expecting Pythia to be the player that's really... everything is resting on their shoulders. If they're able to get things going, really get onto the champions they particularly like, which is the meta ones, the high gankers, the Hecarim, for instance, they are probably going to be able to pull their team through and find themselves a little bit of victory. It is also a roster that's quite well suited to deal with Grey Warwick, because Grey Warwick like to play around Spark and Heathen, as you can see down in the bottom lane, but Harry and Radula are actually pretty good at sitting back and absorbing pressure.
Yeah, I think reliability in the bot lane is the name of the game for really both of these teams. They have very strong bot lines that, if played around, they will be pulling through. And looking at Grey Warwick, Xplis is the one person that kind of has become the X factor in the day 1 for this squad. And if we look at the game that they played against PG Lions last week, Xplis got essentially neutralized in draft. So I think that R5 pick is genuinely something that could decide the outcome of the game.
It really could do. The teams are going to be able to pick themselves sides based on seeding, and so currently I think that should be Grey Warwick getting side selection. Do they want themselves that counter pick? Because last time around, the last time these 2 teams faced, it was off stream, but we can tell you that it was a Gnar versus Vladimir matchup, the Vladimir being the 5th pick, really neutralized out Xplis on the Gnar, trying to find, that ability to push forwards on the team. Instead, did not manage to find any real success, was successfully neutralized, and that meant that the whole composition was not really able to get off the ground and get started.
Yeah, and the whole combo of Grey Warwick, they drafted basically for Spark with that Kokmo Lulu in the bot lane and Lobo playing Sona in the mid lane with Mofu on that Xin. That is a comp that Grey Warwick wanted to go for 8 game, and essentially what PG Lions did last time these teams met is they said, no, we're not gonna let you, and they smashed them through in the early.
They really did. It was a pretty close matchup. for the first 5 minutes or so, and then it just exploded into the favor of PG Lions, basically just because Grey Warwick were not able to get themselves really off of the ground. As soon as Explus was falling behind, they did not have that sort of branch between the early game that was strong enough to then support a late game. You are trying to play very much safe during the early game and find yourself a few advantages if you have a Cogmore composition, but if your top lane is also not able to find advantages, suddenly you have 3 losing lanes, and at that point there's nothing your jungler can do, and the enemy team is able to just run rampant across the entire map and take whatever they want, and at that point you're so far behind that although you do scale excellently, you're not able to pull yourself back forwards.
Yeah. And now we talked about the weaknesses of Grey Warwick that we've seen. Let's talk about the weaknesses of PG Lions, because we actually saw them drop the game against UDL Sigma on stream last week, and I feel like the highlight of it was Pitya getting punished.
Yeah, Pitcher got punished very badly, and as soon as that happened, the whole squad kind of fell down a little bit. They were able to neutralize that jungle, and then all of a sudden the lanes were sort of just sat there not doing a lot, not necessarily falling behind, but Pitcher is the person that is pushing them forwards, making them able to get themselves kills and lane advantages. These laners are good, they are perfectly fine, but they are not really creating advantages for themselves. They have to have Pitcher in that lane to get them those advantages, and then once they have them, they're able to play around them excellently. But if you can stop the jungler, it's not necessarily that Pitcher is going to be, the most kills in the team, but they are going to have the highest assists, possibly, and just the most map presence, always around the map, always helping out the team. And as soon as you can neutralize that, you really neutralize the entire squad.
Yeah, and I mean, from the one loss that PG Lions took, that is what we can conclude. And yeah, mid lane, of course, in this matchup, I don't think it's going to be too exciting, because looking at that Lobob and Shuroi both have played more of that supportive role. That being said, are there maybe any picks that you're looking at as being highly impactful in this lane?
I'm not so sure what we're going to see. It will probably be meta out of both of these junglers. Both of them really like to play the meta picks. It's sort of the rest of the map that enjoys pulling things out that are a little bit different. We're going to see a lot of the Hecarim, probably a lot of the Lee Sin, the Xin, everything we've really come to expect. The Hecarim has one of the highest pick rates in the entire tournament right now, so that's either going to be banned out to force somebody onto something different, or, picked up straight away. There is also the chance for Pitcher to pull out something a little bit different, possibly the Kindred. It does like those highly aggressive champions, and that can really change up the game. We saw how strong that is when paired with the Zillion, can really stop anybody from being able to die, allow you to play as far forwards as you want. But that is a little bit of a risky pick. If you don't start getting those marks, if you do fall behind, that can really put you in a bad spot.
Yeah, I mean, Zillion, you mentioned, is definitely a pick that I'll be watching, hopefully on the ban board for this week, since the last time round we have seen it so many times, and as you mentioned, those chrono shifts, so very, very impactful. And maybe let's take a look at the top lane, right? Versus Chulliper. I mean, both of them have stepped up to be the carries in their respective wins already in, the first half of last week's Group Stage C.
Yeah, indeed. Both of them have the ability to carry. Both of them are not always put on the carries, however. We've seen, especially Explis, being put on more and more carries recently. If you look at them at the start of this split, was playing much more of the tanks, really sitting back, and has been having more and more responsibility put on his shoulders, and for the most part has really been paying it off. With the Gnar and the Camille picks, always is excellent, and we have to highlight the Poppy. Explis is excellent on the Poppy. If you ban it, I mean, that's definitely the correct decision. If you don't ban it, it will almost certainly be picked. It did go through a ban last week and it was not picked up, but when it is the correct pick, especially to neutralize opposition, Explis is excellent on it. We'll be getting solo kills left, right, and center, and then translate that into excellent team fights. So will the Poppy be put on the ban list? If it is, that's a certain ban that, you can play around, and that removes one other option basically every single game. Having someone who is so good on one champion can really shift the bans, and if they always have to ban it, that's something else getting through, possibly on the rest of the map.
Yeah, I mean, we hyped up Explicit Poppy last week. It did not come through, I believe, any games, but it did come through domestically last week, so that is why we are bringing it up, because Explicit got to play the Poppy, and yeah, looked pretty nuts. Let's see if PG Lions, or really any other teams in Group C, think it is that much of a pick, or more specifically, if Grey Warwick really want to value that, because as I have, started off, they did not prioritize it last week at all.
Indeed, we've got a couple of replays to have a quick look at before we get into draft, just sort of see what we are expecting out of these teams. Had a good time of it last week, as we said, 4-1 for the PG Lions, 4-1 from Grey Warwick.
Oh, they're from yesterday.
These are from last week. yesterday, sorry, my bad. So these are the games that we saw on the last week.
Yeah, I think that's the game that KDC were starting to fall behind. Of course, they did have an undefeated record, so yeah, they did end up winning this one. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't seen this fight live. Do they steal the Baron? No, they don't.
I think that this is a show of the fact that Kid SC have the ability to lose, which we did not know beforehand. We did not know that they had it in them to bleed. Apparently they do, though. Obviously they do still come through and win this game. We know that Kid SC ended up winning out and taking all of their games as victories, but as you can see, they are, you know, putting themselves a little bit far behind, but if you chase too far onto them, they just get destroyed. You can see the ability of Kid SC to take turns.
Yeah, I think honestly, at some point the Shyvana Gwen turnaround just comes through, and well, I mean, Yone is also a bit of a disgusting pick from time to time, but yeah, it was not enough.
Indeed, it wasn't, and this looks like it's the Bobcats game.
I think definitely Bristol Warriors on one side, and that hurt me. That physically hurt me. Oh.
That certainly was a Drake steal. You're going to see a little bit of fight into the top lane. You can see, again, the Hecarim being picked up. We're expecting that to be quite a priority pick still. But we can see in the bot lane, we're actually getting a little bit of Ezreal Karma, which is another bot lane that we could expect to see out of either of these teams. Can be very strong as well. Great poke really can change the sort of the landscape of the bottom lane. Oh, as that Jinx rocket just about misses. But you can see that between the last week and this week, we have not seen very many picks change. The compositions are pretty much the same. The meta is evolving a little bit, but because we are on Tournament Realm and on the same patch as we were for the previous 2 weeks, there's not too much exception.
Yep, and okay, that was actually a really nice play there from Killmaster, but I think a greater takeaway we might also see from those replays from yesterday is that the overall feel of this tournament did not change since last week. It still very much feels like, yes, early game is impactful, but if you've got the ability and the comp to outplay your opponents later on in the game, then that is what ultimately ends up winning you games.
Indeed. We saw that winning the early game did not necessarily mean that you ended up coming out on top of the game. Instead, you really needed to be able to sit back and scale. Obviously, if you got destroyed very early, then it was quite hard to turn that momentum around. But just having winning lanes in order to transition you into the late game is more impactful than having winning lanes early in order to just win you the game outright.
Yeah, Fiestas have kind of been the name of this whole tournament, and so yeah, we can talk about the strategy that definitely helps. But at the end of the day, if you're a team that is just really good at team fighting, you can exploit it at this level. Especially that these teams are really good. So if you're good at team fighting, chances are you're really good.
Alrighty, so we are going to jump back out of these replays and into pick ban in just a couple of seconds. And I mean, everything we said previously has all been speculation. Last game that these two teams played, it did go in the favor of PG Lions, but it's a fresh week. Everybody's had time to reset, come at it with a fresh perspective, and see if you're going to be able to come out on top this time around.
Yep, as we are going to go into the picks and bans, Grey Warwick will be taking the red side with PG Lions on the blue side. Red 5 is what I will be watching at later on in the draft, but of course there is still that blue side first pick to watch out for and all the bans preceding.
Indeed, for the minute it looks like, just going to take our time, the Leon are going to come off of the board first. Spark and Heathen are very good on it. The Heathen is an excellent support, really can fly forwards and destroy people by just getting on top of them and having enough CC. So taking the Leon off of the board, looking at a little bit of a focus onto the bottom lane, not wanting Spark and the Heathen to be able to be the main focus.
Yeah, and there is the Kindred ban. Out of Pythia, we have seen them at least once. I can recall one game going through, and heavy focus towards the support position here from PG Lions bans.
Indeed, really does not want the Heathen to be able to play very well. It makes a lot of sense. As we highlighted during the beginning stages of the game, this UK squad really does like to play around their bottom lane. They want this Spark and Heathen combo to be able to get ahead, and so taking out 3 champions from the bottom lane is really telling of where they are looking to focus, but this does leave the entire rest of the map completely free.
Yeah, it does. We have the Akshan as the last ban thrown out against Shuri, and well, with that many bot lane bans, I mean, PG Lions, surely you guys will have something else. There we go, a Karma is going to be locked in.
Karma can flex between the mid and the bot lane. I mean, you could technically put it in the top lane, so it is very flexible, a pretty good one to take first, but it does just allow you that flexibility. It will almost always lose in the mid lane, but can put yourself back up into a nice spot. Gonna hover the Warwick. You've got to if you are the Grey Warwick side. But yeah, the Karma can be very good at just absorbing lane pressure in the mid lane or being a highly poking bot laner if you don't want to be pushed in by Spark and the Heathen. The response is going to be the Xin, a very strong jungler for Mofu, and Mofu has had a completely free champion pool, so this is the pick that they absolutely want with no like, oh, I can't quite play this, can't quite play that. They are very good on the Xin Zhao, will allow them a lot of priority to come into picture and not allow them to just run rampant across the map.
Yeah, it is definitely a comfort fallback for Mofu. However, Xin isn't a pick that has won games consistently for Grey Warwick. It does feel like it's just part of the bigger picture, and they are going to go for the Aphelios for Spark.
Yeah, the Aphelios as well. So even if you ban out most of the good picks for Spark, Jinx going to be able to pick it up. The Aphelios can be not countered by the Jinx, but the Jinx does tend to win out on terms of damage in those big fights. So not taking the Jinx off the board and picking the Aphelios blind does leave the Jinx open. Instead, it's going to be the Jhin, and these two are really the second tier of champions beneath the Jinx. Nobody wants to go for it right now, and so these are two champions that are going to want to sit back and deal the damage from not getting too close.
Yeah, and Jhin is something that Harry has fallen back on time and time again, and if it is a Jhin Karma bot lane, it's a very safe one. It's one that is, going to be hard to shut down and will provide value almost no matter the context, as Hecarim is going to be the jungler of choice, presumably for PG Lions.
Yeah, Pitcher, as we highlighted before, loves this Hecarim, will pick it up almost every single time, is excellent on it. It really allows them enough mobility to get all across the map and impact every single lane. The only thing is, it does lose out in straight 1v1s versus the Xin, and so, Ofu is not locked out, as it is going to be a Soraka lock-in, as Soraka plus Aphelios lane is very strong.
Hold on. Lobob has played Soraka mid last week.
Yes, the only thing is Lobob can also pick it up, so it is still technically a flex. Either way, it's going to give a lot of support onto the Aphelios, and you're getting a little bit of what we saw last time from the Grey Warwick squad, of a bit of a protect the puppy comp.
Yeah, it definitely looks to be leaning this way. Of course, Soraka is still a flex as of now, and we're going to go into the second phase of bans with top laners still untouched by both squads, so that is the safe lane where you can throw out bans. And yeah, actually, both teams have got those support mid flex picks, so I expect there to be the focus towards the Chuliper and Xbliss.
It makes sense to put those, bans up into the top lane. The Lulu going to be taken off the board means that they really do think that this Soraka is going to go into the middle lane. That is very telling. If it is the Soraka into the middle lane, you can either go with something highly aggressive into the mid lane and put the Karma down into the bottom lane and just try to kill the Soraka on repeat, make sure that they are not useful, or put the Karma mid is support versus support matchup in the mid lane and sort of ignore the middle lane, say these guys are just going to be farming, looking to come down into the bottom lane, and instead have more aggressive supports to try to actually fight out and use the support of these mid laners. As again, another ban out of Grey Warwick going up into the top side. They do not want Tulipa to be able to come forward and actually begin to apply pressure when their bot lane likely isn't going to have that much at the start.
Yep, and let's see where the last ban from PG Lance is going to be. Is it going to be another Enchanter supporting lane? No, they do respect the Poppy from Xbliss.
You really have to. Leaving it up is just such a risk, because either he doesn't pick it and you feel pretty good about not having banned it, or they do pick it and all of a sudden you're in a horrible spot versus a man's main champion. He absolutely loves it. He's absolutely excellent on it. So just taking it off the board saves you the embarrassment of losing to it, because if you do lose to it, you knew that you probably needed to ban it. You took that risk. It's entirely on you for going down to it.
Okay, we're going to see Rakan from the Heathen. I was gonna say the comp of Grey Warwick do need some engage, and that champion is going to provide it pretty nicely.
Really is. The only thing is it's a pretty squishy composition out of Grey Warwick right now. They're going to need something big and tanky in the top lane. The Gnar is still available, which will give you more engage and more tankiness if that's what you want, with also the ability to just be in that mini form and deal more damage. It has been a favourite of Xbliss right now. Other than that, if you want big engaged tanks in the top lane, you still have the Ornn available. That is going to be the Vigar pickup right into the middle lane for Bristol Mandev. So that means that it will be a Karma down into the support role. Sorry, not that.
PG Lions.
PG Lions. Sorry,
It's
where is my
okay.
brain?
Yep, still in last week, Newell, I believe. That being said, yeah, I do love the Rakan, the Vigar into the Rakan specifically, because the cage just absolutely screws over the engage. from this champion if you're fighting in the choke points, and Aatrox as a blind pick up in the top lane for Tuliper is going to come out.
I like that Aatrox pickup. That is laying down the gauntlet. Hey, XSplit, we're going to fight. I don't care what you're playing. We're always going to fight. And with Gordrinker being as strong as it is at the moment, this Aatrox can survive for eons. Will not go down during these team fights without, sustained and very focused pressure onto them. If they get into the backline, can wreak absolute havoc, knockups constantly, as well as healing throughout being in the middle lane. And, as we said, engage, tankiness, Malphite is perfect.
And why not? It's a full AD top side of the map with that Aatrox and Hecarim as the two champions are going to be facing most of the time. So, right, comp of Grey Warwick. It does feel a bit off in the sense that, well, first of all, XSplit is on a tank, Lobob again on a weak side mid lane, bot lane seems to be the only lane you can try to snowball through.
No, if you're Mofu, you're probably going to be starting up in the top lane and just moving your way down towards bottom. You really do just want to put Spark and the Heathen ahead. If they fall behind, there is very little actual damage onto this composition. I mean, unless XSplit really wants to go full AP, I highly doubt that, but they might have to, considering there is not a lot of AP damage actually on the Grey Warwick squad. If you look over at PG Lions, however, they have a much better, well-rounded composition, but they are pretty squishy all through if Tuliper is not able to constantly get the heals off.
Yeah, I think when we look at this comp, definitely PG Lions coming out with a more well-rounded comp. There we go. I would expect the top lane focus here, maybe potentially coming from Pitchia. Mid as well, an option against Lobob here. But bot lane, Harry and Radular, I kind of expect them to be left on the weak side this game.
They probably should be. It's what you have to expect, but that means that they could well concede to pressure. They are going to have to sit quite far back, do not want to push forwards, otherwise they may well go down to Mofu. As it stands though, probably a lot more focus up into the top lane, and this is once again a split map. And actually, all of the times we saw split maps last time around, we ended up seeing whoever had the top lane pressure come out on top.
Yeah, and also I do want to add that XSplit is going to be pretty diveable if this lane is going anyway, which I expect. If we're gonna see Pitchia camp up towards the top side, and Aatrox Hecarim at level 6, if XSplit is behind in levels and doesn't have that ultimate, is going to be a very dangerous position to be in.
Very, very dangerous indeed, but there is still ability for the Grey Warwick squad to come forwards and beat out. They have a good engage composition. They are just a little bit hurt, perhaps, by the Vigar. That is very anti-engage with the cage, and so when everybody comes flying in, has the ability to just pop the cage down, everybody runs back, and then all of that engage is gone, can then re-engage. And it could be in a little bit of a hard spot, but if they can find the angles, the Grey Warwick squad has the ability to just blow somebody up and keep the Aphelios very safe.
Yeah, and I kind of do want to throw another point, is that domestically, at least, the Grey Warwick have impressed me with their ability to team fight. And with that comp, they are playing into those strengths. My worry is whether they will be able to get their team fight, especially as you mentioned, Shurui's cage, Pitya in the early game, Tuliper potentially snowballing in the top lane. All these worries for Grey Warwick to answer, but we're gonna go into the game. PG Lions, Grey Warwick at the top of the table. They're gonna duke it out. Let's see who comes out on top.
Whoever wins this could well be winning the group, going straight into the top 8, finding themselves with a little bit of prize pool money and the ability to fight for the trophy. And whoever loses still has the ability to get out of the group. This is not one and done for either of these teams, but you have got to try your hardest to get this if you want to come out on top in your group.
Especially, you only have 3 matches today, you don't have those 5 due to the dropouts as we mentioned, so every game matters that much more. And as we mentioned, the group is close, so neither team wants to make a mistake. No crazy invades, only that ward in the pixel bush being dropped, and we're gonna go into a pause.
An instantaneous pause. Hopefully it's just a few connection issues. Should be sorted pretty quickly, we hope, which gives us a little bit more time to set up the stakes really and talk more about these compositions. As you said, nobody has decided to pull anything crazy out right at the beginning, which makes a lot of sense. If you are playing against the top people in your group, you do not want to be, throwing it all away via a crazy level 1. We've seen that happen in the groups yesterday. Some teams went for crazy level 1s, ended up going down. And so if you can just sit back, start, chill, you're going to be in a much better spot, really. It's not worth the risk.
Yeah, it just is not. We also got the confirmation that the top lane was lagging. Not sure if that is Chilper or XSplit, but hopefully that will be resolved quickly. Of course, you don't want to be playing in suboptimal conditions when this is a group that, well, has now become the secondary group of death. Let's be honest, we had the Group D as one of them, but I guess Group C has now become one.
Indeed it has. With those two teams unable to compete, everybody has that little bit less to play for, that little bit less that they're really trying to win out on, and so everybody is looking to pick up every single win that they can. We talked about it a little bit before, but that upset factor is kind of gone. It's not being upset if you're beaten by one of the top 4 teams, you are just losing. Whereas if you get beaten up by one of the bottom 2 teams who are not finding so much success, then it is really an upset, something you were not expecting, not counting on. And so you cannot pray to the gods that they end up losing out to somebody they probably were not supposed to. You have got to win this game. Both of these teams have aspirations of going far in this tournament. Neither of them are coming out of their group on top with a full undefeated sweep like we have in Group A and Group B. And so you've got to prove that you are worthy of the top spot, as the other teams are.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, UDL, Esports Sigma, and KTU are hot on their tails, so yeah, you really want to get the win, get yourself distanced from the rest of the teams, and make sure you are looking good as well while doing it, because yeah, if you want to be that one step above all the teams, well, you gotta prove that, and both these teams certainly are of that caliber to do it. And yeah, I don't think we talked too much about the bot lane. I don't know if there's anything, too exciting for you to look there. We have Aphelios Rakan against Jin Karma. I would assume the Jin Karma is going to have the wave push advantage.
Should do, absolutely should do. The Jin Karma has a lot of poke and the ability to catch people up pretty easily. There's a lot of slows, which makes actually landing those Jin routes a lot easier. And so there is that possibility for fights in the bottom lane. I mean, if the Rakan wants to go flying in, could well happen. I mean, the Heathen is very good on those engaged supports. It is a possibility. However, I'm more expecting for Spark to be left alone to sit back and for the Heathen to actually go and maybe join the jungler around the rest of the map. Obviously, you want the bottom lane to be your main focus. You want to get the Aphelios ahead. But there is not that much that you can do onto a Jin Karma who ends up getting too far forwards. The only thing is that the Jin Karma will want to push, and if they push too far forwards, that will leave Mofu in a pretty good spot to try for a gank down there.
Yeah, that's what we're watching out for, especially with the Heathen on their account. Also going to be someone to watch in the, well, early game, mid game, late game, really whenever, because those engages are going to be crucial, together with XSplit at some point, yes, of course, but Rakan in itself is a champion that kind of differentiates easily between a good support and a great support.
Really is. The Rakan is highly skilled. It's really dependent on whether you know when you can go in or not. You can always go in and get yourself an engage on a Rakan. The Rakan basically will always be able to land a knock-up, will be able to land a charm and get the team in. It's whether or not the Rakan survives that separates the good from the great Rakans. The Rakan is very squishy, especially post the first 2 seasons or so that he was around. He could build more tanky. Now he cannot at all. You're not going to be a tanky Rakan. You're going to be very squishy. And so, are you able to get in and get back out? Use all of those dances to fling yourself into a fight, get the knock-up on the key members and get back out? Or are you going to go in, get a knock-up and explode? It will leave your team in a numbers disadvantage. And the Rakan needs to be annoying. And you can't be annoying if you're dead almost instantly.
Yeah, that's something to watch out for. Absolutely, and yeah, before we're going to hopefully get the polls resolved soon for anyone watching, we are in game, it's paused, we should be back in. I will be looking at the junglers pathing, where they decide to go. We have already, of course, hyped up Pitya, Mofu on the Xin. It's a comfort pick, it's not one he has consistently carried Grey Warwick on, but still nonetheless one with potential.
Yeah, Mofu knows this pick very well, will know this matchup very well as well, because the Hecarim and the Xin have been very popular throughout basically the last season or two, really. Came back into the meta 2 seasons ago and hasn't really left. Both of these champions are very good at duels. The Xin will have the slight edge, but has been nerfed a little bit in this patch especially. This patch that we're playing on is the 15.5, I think.
12.5, yeah, I think.
That's the one.
We're gonna get confirmation from production at some point, presumably, if we're getting it wrong, so yeah.
And the top laner has reconnected. We are just waiting. Still not sure which top laner, but we'll be back into game in just a second. But the Xin is a little bit weaker at the moment, has a longer cooldown on that Wind Becomes Lightning, and has also got a shorter amount of duration on that ultimate that gives you the invulnerability, and so it's a little bit weaker. The Hecarim is a bit stronger right now, but both of these champions are going to be able to get themselves into lanes and get ganks off. It just depends on if they're going to be looking for counter ganks or trying to avoid the enemy and try to go in on their own.
Yeah, that's something to watch out for sure. And something to throw out. Mid laners, they're both gankable. I mean, Veigar, Soraka, no escapes really here, as I believe we are probably gonna go in very soon, expecting the game to be unpaused any moment. But yeah, let's see if either Shiroi or Lobob are going to be punished in their, well, mid lane farming. I don't think they're gonna look for more than that.
Not for the early stage of the game. Sure, might be able to look for assassinations onto this poor Soraka during the game, but for the minute, it should just be a farm fest in the middle lane. Really, these junglers, as you can see, both starting top lane, and that's because they want to get in and start fighting down on the bottom side.
Yep. And neither of them getting a leash. Starting leashless, of course, as Pythia does have the option of doing the Gromp and the blue buff simultaneously, but that is about the most interesting thing happening, I believe, right now.
For the minute, everybody is just sitting back looking to get themselves nice and set in their lanes. You are going to see a slightly faster clear coming out of Mofu, simply because they're not going to take as many camps up in the top side. Will then be down into the bottom side a little bit quicker, and there is a massive push, as we said there would be, out of Harry and Radula to begin with, and that does leave them exposed to a gank if Mofu decides to go for it.
But in the short term, does that mean they're gonna hit the level 2 spark and he then automatically have to play back? And I love it. Shiroi, he's gonna push out, walk down, walk into the fog of war, and he's gonna try and spot Mofu's clear.
This will end up working out as well. We'll see Mofu, and this will allow Harry and Radula to see where the jungler is, see when they need to back off, get as much farm as they can do in the meantime. A excellent little play out of Shuri. The sort of thing that looks very small, it's just one ward, but could really change the course of a game.
Yeah, Mofu does clear it out, but of course information has been gained, and Harry and Radula will be looking to bounce the wave back. Clean early game plays, of course, from PG Lions. The question is, what do you do now with this information?
For the minute, you have got to sit back a little bit. Just make sure that you do not end up going down, or they could try to catch out Mofu on the jungle. Looks like this is the decision they're going to go for.
Yeah, and Mofu is now getting caught out by the bot lane, and the jungler on his Grom does seem to be just running away from the bush. There we go, the fight is in full swing. Bot laner is coming right back in. He then comes in with a double knockup. That is Pythia's solo first blood has been picked up by Harry, but Spark retaliates very quickly. Jungler's falling down to the ADCs. He then getting caught out. Flash. Kate not gonna catch anyone out, and unfortunately Shuri unsuccessful with finding kills on the roam.
Oh, a little bit of an insane fight down in the bottom lane. We ended up missing the beginning stages of it. In the end, though, champions going down for both sides. Both of the supports gonna get killed, and both of the kills are gonna go down onto the AD carries. This means that everybody in the bot side is a little bit more accelerated, and this bot lane becomes more and more impactful. The thing is, though, if both of these bot laners are doing well for themselves, it could come down to the other lanes. Oh, that's a catch onto the Heathen.
Yeah, but Heathen is going to try and go back in. Does get wounded. There's the fourth shot, and Harry gonna take him down. There's the second kill for the ADC of PG Lions. There's a fight in the topside scuttle. Mofu will have to flash away. Pitcher going in with the devastating charge. Brings him right back in. There's the flash in from Chulver. Mofu looking for the kill. Lobo will be able to get it, but it's again a trade. And PG Lions killing the jungler here means Mofu is going to be stuck as Spark under the turret, getting assaulted. Almost dead, not quite.
Or nearly getting taken out, ends up just about surviving. You can see that there is action all across the map, and this is what happens when you have high ganking, high damage junglers able to get in on fights all across the map. The concerning thing for Grey Warwick is, though, that was a 2v2 kill that they ended up losing, whereas everywhere else it's the junglers getting involved. If you are starting to lose this matchup just by yourselves, that will spell absolute disaster. Will either draw Mofu down there or leave Mofu with no choice but to abandon the lane. And so if you are Spark and the Heathen, you have got to begin to pull this one back. They should do once there are more levels on the Rakan. Things swing quite severely into the favor of Grey Warwick once you hit 6, with more aggressive options available to them. Ganking the top lane.
Express will just flash away immediately. The gank tax has been paid. Does Express get away? Tagged by the Infernal Chains, he's gonna be fine.
see that Pitcher is all over the map, and this is what we wanted out of them during the early stages of the game. Wanted them to get involved, try to find themselves kills the whole way through, and is active across all of the map.
Yeah, I mean, both junglers are really. Malfoy is just the one that's slightly behind on the play here. Tries to go in for Shuri, unfortunately, with that cage. Very hard champion to gank. And we have the first recalls coming in from both of the AD carries. New Quiver and Boots for Harry. Spark going for Boots double longsword. So, of course, they're a disadvantage, as we would expect, with the kills going for Harry. But all things considered, not doomed yet.
No, everybody is sitting pretty much even for the minute. You can see that other than a slight lead for PG Lions, there is a bit... Oh, there's a gank onto the mid lane.
Yeah, he then does find the knock-up. Do they have enough damage, though, with Lobo? That is the big question. Ashur is going to go back in. He's got the level 6, so watch out for that Primal Reverse. There is Druid onto Lobo. The shield barrier coming out. But Pitya will be able to take the kill with a Rampage nonetheless.
That was very aggressive out of the Heathen and Lobob, and I mean, it's a Soraka Rakan. That is 2 supports. That is not a lot of damage, and end up going far too far forward, gets taken out by Pitcher on the counter gank. And I said that there was a possibility for the Heathen to roam around the map, look for kills, but unfortunately, when the lanes do not have the setup for it, and you don't have Mofu there to support, it can go a little bit wrong as a dive is being set up down into this bottom lane.
No. Yep, Heathen is going to get caught out in the rotation. Pitcher now looking to run him down. Does pop the ghost. Devastating charge brings him back. The deadly flourish connects. The root finds its mark, and that's Pitcher with the second kill of the game. And Spark now, I mean, he is going to get sieged by 4 members of PG Lions. I don't see a way out of this.
Mofu is down here, might try to help out.
Express does have TP. It's gonna use it towards the tower. It has got the level 6. Spark, he's got the Murder Gun. Shuri going way too far forward. The PG Lions called in overextension Express. He doesn't have the flash, but he does have the ult. Lobo trying to keep the members of PG Lions slowed down. And Regular got out by the Unstoppable Force. Express takes the kill. It's gonna cost him the tower place in the top lane, but Grey Warwick, they save their AD carry.
They've managed to get themselves some absolutely insane kills right there. We're going to go into another quick pause. We'll get you out of production, you know, what has actually happened here. For the minute, we can talk about that fight that just happened down in the bottom lane. PG Lions thought that they had the ability to dive. Spark ends up turning it on its head, and then there's just more members able to collapse from Grey Work, and they end up turning it, and they should, we don't know this yet, but they should be able to pick themselves up that Hextech Drake.
Yeah, I mean, the cost of the play is what I will be looking at. Of course, Juliper is going to be left in the top lane to pick up the plates. I don't think it's ever going to be a straight-up win in this scenario for PG Lions unless they go back and, you know, somehow win the fight around the Drake. But good response from Grey Warwick. It is a play to stem the bleeding. It's not a proactive play that, you know, they make to get themselves ahead.
No, it's not. They had to respond to this play rather than making it for themselves.
Okay.
We need to do a quick restart on this stream. That is what has happened. Things are a little bit laggy, I think, but we will be back very shortly to get back into the game.